On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks are 3-1 to start the season. It's been good so far, but what are some good signs of things to come for the Mavericks? Talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavericks.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Amazing.
Your team every day.
Still can't eat milk.
And welcome. You're locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being an everydayer and making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. Subscribe to our free Locked On Mavs newsletter, your one stop for the best news and analysis on the Dallas Mavericks, straight to your inbox, lockedondaily.com, or check the QR code if you're watching. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And joining me, as always, my co-host, media member, the Halloween heister, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Ooh, it's spooky season. What does James Harden say? Scary hours.
Are you upset that this is the
Halloween.
last day that you can watch Hocus Pocus before
Hey,
season?
You can watch Hocus Pocus out of season.
Isaac's
Nick,
favorite
real
movie.
quick. So we're going trick-or-treating tomorrow night.
We are?
Okay, well, no. With my kids.
Not invited.
And what's the worst candy you could get as a kid?
Oh, as a kid, for me, it was the, what's the one with coconut in it? That was is it a Baby Ruth? I don't know
Oh,
why I
you
hate
hate it. You
I
hated,
hated that as a kid. Yeah, I did not like that. There's worse ones, but that was
No,
one that I
that-
was like,
The like orange and like brown like wax paper. It has no name, no labels
Candy corn?
on it. No, candy corn's good. But
you're a candy corn truther?
I am.
No, anti. It's wax.
But it's that like plain orange, or it's the worst candy. I'm like, it doesn't even have a brand.
No,
Why do people still buy
circus
this?
peanuts is worse.
I don't mind those.
No, it's candy corn and circus peanuts.
Circus peanuts. I mean, well, I haven't had those forever, but candy corn's not bad, especially if you mix it with peanuts. Not bad.
If you got to mix your candy with something else to make it good, it's not good candy.
Peanut butter, you got to mix it with jelly, so peanut butter's not good.
I can eat peanut butter right out of the jar, Ted Lasso style. Just stick my finger right in it.
Okay.
Today's episode, we'll talk about some actual good things. Unlike candy corn, we'll talk about some good things for the Mavericks. We'll talk about good signs for the Mavericks. We'll talk about some things early in the season, 4 games in, not a lot, but there's some good signs already for the Mavericks that they're 3-1, and some of these things have happened. We'll talk about Klay Thompson and how he fits with the Mavericks. We'll talk about Daniel Gafford and the starting lineup. Like that's been good. Dereck Lively's role off the bench. We'll talk about Luka and all that. But let's start here, Isaac Harris. There's a lot of talk about Klay Thompson throughout the offseason. We spent a lot of time talking about Klay Thompson. A lot of people spend a lot of time talking about Klay Thompson because he's a figure in the NBA. He's won multiple titles. He's been part of a generational team with the Warriors, and then that they had a falling out and all that. And Klay Thompson on the Mavericks, there are some that said this is not going to work. Absolutely not going to work. There's no way it's going to work. Some even went so far as to say the offense is not going to work with Klay Thompson, which all of us saw as a ridiculous thing to say. But so far, Klay Thompson has really worked for the Mavs.
Yeah, he has. I mean, that was one of the bigger questions, right? Going into the season. I mean, we were super high on Klay coming to Dallas, but it was like, well, what kind of version of Klay are you going to get? What, post-injury Klay and all this stuff. And I was just so excited to have Klay the person, Klay the three-point shooter, and all of that. And it's like, dude, I think he's been better than expected. Like, I think he's moving really well. I think some of his defense, is not pre-injury Klay, but I'm like, dude, you're not like a negative.
He'd be upset you said that.
What?
Klay would be upset. He wants to prove that he's better than pre-injury Klay.
No, well, I just think he's looking good at everything on the floor. I mean, yeah, he had just 7 points against Minnesota, but he's shooting 43% from 3 right now. I think something is fascinating with how Jason Kidd's using him. So I was looking at some of his on-off splits, and this is wild. He doesn't play without Luka. All right. So as far as like the Luka and Kyrie tandem, and we know that they put players with different units and different stuff. Kyrie and Klay Thompson. Can you guess how many minutes they've played together this season without Luka?
I'm gonna guess it's like 5.
Shut up. Stop. Did you look this up?
No, is it 5?
It's 4.
Let's go.
Get out of here. They played 4 minutes together without Luka on the floor. All right, try it again, smarty pants. Guess how many minutes Klay and Luka have played together on the floor without Kyrie Irving?
Without Kyrie?
Yeah, come on. Come on.
26.
33.
No.
So a big difference there, of how many minutes that they're obviously trying to pair Klay with Luka, and it's like, hey, we think you'll be maximized the most playing alongside Luka Doncic, and it's working, right? Like even on those minutes that Luka and Klay are playing together, as far as net rating, plus 21 in those 33 minutes, a 124 offensive rating, and a 103 defensive rating when Luka and Klay are on the floor together without Kyrie. So it's working. It's working really well. He's spacing the floor. He's given them another sense of offense that, can you imagine when Luka is playing like Luka? He hasn't started the season well. We know that. And then we still have this third option in Klay that we just haven't had that type of, oh, okay, he can just knock this thing down. That's the thing that makes me really excited.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Luka's shooting a little bit later, but sticking with Klay, 22 points, 19 points, 18 points, and then 7 points, but in a win against the Timberwolves. You look at just those first 3 games, you go, man, how many times did the Mavericks just need somebody? Can you give us 20 points potentially tonight?
Yeah.
Right? Like in the last couple of years, the Mavs have had Tim Hardaway that can do that every once in a while, but not as consistently as we hope Klay can do this year. And the Mavs feel confident enough to draw plays up for him, to run stuff for him off of we've talked about the inbounds plays a couple times where Klay's gotten some threes off of those plays. We've talked about what Klay brings as far as gravity. I was looking back at the play the other day against the Timberwolves where Kid drew up out of timeout. PJ to get that lob at the rim from Luka. He's wide open. There's nobody at the rim at all. And it's because Klay came up and set a back screen, and DiVincenzo was like, I can't switch off of Klay. Can't leave him open, right? Like the whole thing about Klay.
Still can't leave me open.
That's right. And DiVincenzo didn't switch. So then Jade McDaniels or Nickeil Alexander-Walker or whoever that was supposed to go through couldn't go through the screen, and then PJ was wide open at the rim and got that dunk. It was because of Klay Thompson and that gravity. Like that doesn't happen if there's somebody there that you're like, I'm okay with leaving that guy for a second to go guard the rim. So Klay has brought a lot to this team. And yeah, defensively, he looks pretty good. Like against Anthony Edwards, he guarded him a bunch in that game. And yeah, Anthony Edwards went nuts from 3 and just like hit a bunch of jumpers. But then the rest of the game, he didn't really do that much.
Yeah, 13 points in the rest of the 3 quarters outside that first. When looking up the highest plus minus on the team right now as far as individual players, can you guess which, spoiler alert, you'll know the answer. Can you guess which player has appeared in all 4 games so far this season and has the highest plus minus on the team?
I'm going to guess it's Klay.
How did you know that?
Still can't leave me open.
That's Klay Thompson. He's playing winning basketball. He's coming to the Mavericks with rings on his hands. So, I also thought it was funny when Luka hit the shot in that video. He hit the shot at the end of the game and he's going nuts, and Lively comes out and hits him up. Klay's just walking back laughing. He's just like, this is fun, which, he's going from Steph to now Luka. He's gotten to play alongside 2 all-time late game shot makers.
It's like, we did it again. Yeah, Klay on Cleaning the Glass, they take out, the site that takes out any of the garbage time minutes and any of the heaves from numbers. So it's a little bit more of a concentrated look at what they've done so far. Klay has the highest on-off numbers as far as adding to the offense. There's 16 points per 100 possessions better when he's on the court offensively than when he's off, which is huge. He's adding so much to this offense. He, spaces the floor. You've seen a lot from him, and I'm loving what I'm seeing from Klay Thompson so far. So his fit so far has been a good sign for the Dallas Mavericks. You'll take that and you'll go, hey, if this is what it looks like, honestly, 4 games with Luka, the kid doesn't want to play Kyrie and Klay together probably because he saw it in preseason and went, you know what? I don't think I like that. So he went with it. But with just 4 games with Luka now, we'll see how the chemistry can even get better throughout the season. That's a good sign to me going forward. And so I'm excited to see how that works. I want to talk about the Luka side of this, though, because there's something with Luka. He has shot 37, 36, and 23% from the field in the Mavs wins this season. I'm going to tell you why that's a good sign coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action and talk about the Dallas Mavericks, talk about the NBA, talk about the NFL if you're still in on it and want to do all things like that. Go check it out. Right now, the Mavericks have worse odds to win the NBA championship than the Timberwolves do.
Ew.
I'm a little offended by that, FanDuel. I'm not going to lie.
Gross.
Mavs plus 1,100, Timberwolves plus 1,000. So if you want to get in on that now, get in on that now. And you can do that by putting down $5. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win. You may want to do that one earlier so that you can get that bonus bets earlier than like the end of the season. But you can go and check out that. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, that's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook.
I have to apologize that you felt that he should have played more.
Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. Check out the QR code for more ways to follow us, including our Locked On Mavs insiders. You get text straight to your phone. Anytime I see a Mavs rumor, anytime I see there's an injury report, new game day, we send texts and messages on game day, updating during the game, all things like that. Straight to your phone, subscribe, check out the QR code or the link in the description if you're listening to the show. And the newsletter got an update. We've been talking about trying to catch Locked On Kings, who had the most subscribers. I have been told through back channel sources that we have become the number one subscribed to podcast in all of them, because there's only NBA right now, but in all of them. So we have the most. Thank you guys for subscribing to the newsletter, but we got to keep it up. We got to get, if you haven't subscribed to the newsletter yet, it's free, straight to your inbox.
Stay in line, guys.
Yeah.
Stay in line. Sign up for the newsletter. It's free. Come on.
Yeah, right. Go straight to your inbox, and I enjoy it. It has links to other Mavs content and other NBA things. It's Katie Heindel is writing an NBA piece for it every day, which is awesome. And then you get some stuff from us as well. So subscribe to that. You'll get it straight to your inbox. All right, Isaac. Talking about good signs for the Dallas Mavericks. Luka shooting 37%, 36%, and 23% from the field would not be necessarily a good sign, right? Like you wouldn't really think that would be a good sign.
Not great, Bob.
Not for him. The Mavericks have won in those games, which to me is a sign that the Mavs are winning games that Luka is not shooting the ball well in. He went 10 of 27, 9 of 25, and 5 of 22 from the field in those games. Do you want to guess? I get to ask you now.
Oh, I'm ready.
Do you want to guess the Mavs record last year when Luka shot under 38% from the field last season?
3-12.
3-5. So you got the wins right. Yeah, 3-5. Not very good. The year before that, you want to guess that one? When Luka shot 38%, under 38%?
4-11.
2-10. It was really close. 2-10 2 years ago, and then 3-5 last year. They already have matched the amount of wins that they had last year when Luka shot 38% or lower on the season. To me, it's a good sign. It's a good sign that Klay is adding a lot. We talked about that. Kyrie has already stepped up, definitely in the Minnesota game. And the Mavs are getting good defensive help from PJ, from the bigs and all that. And I think that it's a good sign going forward that Luka can have a stinker of a shooting game and the Mavs still win.
Of course, it's a good sign. We joked on yesterday's post-game show, which if you haven't listened to, listen to it. As a 3-man weave. It was a lot of fun.
3-man weave.
But no, I joked on there. I was like, we used to pray for times like these, whenever it wasn't so dependent on Luka. And it's like, will we have days ever in life in which Luka can have off nights and we still win basketball games? And it doesn't have to be like the Hornets. And we are. And that's why the Minnesota game was such a staple win. And I think a win that we'll look back on whenever as the season goes along. Is like, hey, that was one of our best wins of the season. And it kind of established us as far as reminding everybody, hey, we went to the finals, not anybody else last year from the West. We did. And we're still here. We're good. And we did this on a back-to-back and going to Minnesota, and Luka's not playing his best basketball, and look at where we're at as a team. So yeah, the fact that you have Kyrie, you have Klay, you have all these different options. You have different options, as far as strategies on offense. We were talking to David Locke about it before the Jazz game the other night, and he was bragging on Jason Kidd and just talking about the different offenses that he has designed for the Mavs and how they can just run these different completely different types of schemes out there based off who's out there. And yeah, he was just really impressed by that.
Yeah, you're running some off-ball stuff for Klay Thompson when he's out there with the starting unit that the Mavs haven't run at all. We've been talking about it all offseason. They should implement some of that. We're already seeing some of that stuff that we've talked about. They're running, just straight up pick and roll with Luka, and they're posting him up a little bit here and there. They're running side pick and roll and some side actions with Kyrie so that he can get going from the left to right side. And yeah, just to see them do a bunch of different things like that. They're diverse. And defensively, it seems like they've held up, at least against the opponents that they've played so far. We'll see a little bit farther. Zach Lowe was tweeting about him, unemployed NBA commentator Zach Lowe.
He should have a Locked On Low. And
he just said Mavs are just rock solid across the board, which you just love to hear, right? Isn't that what you love to hear from like national media, from people that really know basketball? Like, oh, they're solid across the board, meaning like they don't have a lot of holes, and you really have to. He mentioned they're a tough team. You have to play well to beat them, and that is just, isn't it? Like you said, something that we prayed for. It's like, oh, can we finally get a team where you've got to play your best to beat the Mavericks?
Yeah, they just know. I think I was listening to Ryan Russillo the other day talk about them, and he was like, they just know outside of their like new additions. He's like, they just know who they are. He's like, I'm watching other teams at the start of the season, and they're trying to figure out who they are and how different pieces mix and match and fit. And he was like, Dallas just knows who they are. And, even like Klay and the new guys, like they're fitting in, but there's so many staples in the rotation that just knows the role and what to do. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, you couldn't ask for more for a sporting cast and stuff for Luka right now. And then, eventually, and that's the thing too. It's like, there's a difference between somebody like let's say if we'll talk about Daniel Gafford in a second. Like, let's say Gafford is struggling, or another role player is like really struggling. There's a difference between that guy struggling and Luka struggling, because it's like, Luka is going to be fine. Like, Luka's is going to be Luka. We've seen so much evidence of it. And the fact that the Mavericks are winning through that phase right now as he gets adjusted and finds his rhythm, and he's going to find his rhythm soon. He's going to have some like 40, 5-point game over the next week or so. And we're like, oh, welcome to the season.
He had a 40-point game, which is wild. His one good shooting game was 40.
Come on, Luka, step it up. All right.
Yeah, come on. Bud. You mentioned the new guys. Grimes and Marshall combined for 9 of 33 from the field. Like, they've gotten nothing from them offensively, basically, except for Grimes hit 3 threes against Minnesota the other night. And so, they still have room to grow in that. That was going to be one of my good things if I didn't think about this next one. But yeah, like I think that's just really interesting. I have a quick one here.
I haven't even got to share one, so.
No, you started with Klay.
Oh, I did?
That was yours.
I thought that was yours.
No, we talked about it. Talked about this before. All right, share one of yours.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say the vibes and chemistry already. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you just can't. I know it's like cliche and cheesy to talk about chemistry and vibes, but we know, we saw that that team in 2022 go on that Western Conference Finals run that season.
Vibes alone.
Well, just the vibes are immaculate, and like we just always talked about vibes of that team and Brunson and Theo Pinson and all that. Like, it was just a very well like gelled together team, and it's praise that Jason Kidd gets too, because now you get like some still familiar faces still, but kind of like a new cast in here, and you have like similar vibes. Like, he has those relationships, and he builds this atmosphere for his players and for his stars and for the roster, and being able to connect with them, but create this atmosphere to where they're just, they look so close, even from media day to like during the game to just like when you talk to different people, and it's like everybody's just vibing already and gelling together. Obviously winning helps those things. When you start losing, things can hit the fan. But I think, I'm not saying because of the chemistry they've won these games, but I don't think it hurts them. And so it's like, it does play into something as it goes along, and it feels like they already like found that.
Well, and it all works together in a way that has helped the Mavs. Their chemistry is good because everyone knows their role and everyone knows where they slide into. There's not guys that are disgruntled and upset. I mean, maybe Dinwiddie from that first game. Remember, he didn't want to go in. With like 3 minutes left. But other than like those guards, I think, and then maybe Naji Marshall like on offense. Everybody knows what their role is. There's a couple things to iron out at the end of the rotation, but everybody else at the top knows who they are, knows where they fit, knows where they slot in. And I think this is an underrated thing with Klay, is that he spent so long as just one of the three for Steph and Draymond. And it was like the three of them together. And yes, Steph was the best one, but it was still like them three. And he was supposed to be a leader on this team. It's supposed to be this and supposed to be this and supposed to be. And there's just all this, like he's supposed to be this for that team. And he gets out of that and he just gets a brand new, fresh start where he's like kind of a leader, but they don't need him to be that vocal leader. They don't need him to step up and be the adult in the room always. It'd be great, whatever he can bring to everybody else. But they've already got that established with Kyrie and even with, Markieff Morris and Dwight. And like they've got those guys established already in the locker room. And so he gets a brand new, fresh start where there's way less expectations on him. And, Luka, who can find him open and is getting him a ton of open shots still in this offense. And so I think just having that reset vibes wise and chemistry wise, like has really helped Klay Thompson in this so far. And yes, it's early, but it's a good sign.
He has 4 rings, right? Like he could have came in here and been like, I have more rings than all of y'all. And he's just the opposite.
Combined.
Like, our favorite interview from Media Day, right? Like just getting a chance to sit down and talk with Klay at Media Day and just meet him. It's like you always hear about his fun personality and stuff, and then getting those few minutes with him and just everybody you talk to talking about just what a fun guy he is. And we've talked about it too on Media Day, but the Mavericks have 3 legit like popular stars. Like it's like seeing Media Day and seeing like everybody. Typically there's a certain amount of like outlets who only want Luka. And now, like the same grouping of outlets and stations and stuff want Luka, Kyrie, and Klay. Is like, oh, things are different nowadays. Like
we went 2 for 3 on those.
Yeah, it's like this is a different Mavs world that we live in compared to 2017 when it was like, all right, well, Dirk, will you do this? I know you're like 87 now, but this is like your last seasons here, and different times.
Different times, but good signs for the Mavericks already. Another good sign, the starting lineup with Daniel Gafford is actually playing well together. Let's talk about Gafford, and let's talk about another stat that I think is a good sign for the Mavericks and more coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right, Isaac, let's get into some more good signs for the Dallas Mavericks. Daniel Gafford in the starting 5. We talked about this. We've talked about, all right, can we just have Lively start, and we want to see that happen. We want to see the best 5 players play together. But if this is the lineup that Jason Kidd is going with, you've got to accept it at some point, right? It's been 4 games. It's not like he's going to change it quickly, I think, at least through this season. And so we'll keep monitoring that. But if this is going to be the starting 5, it's good to see that the starting 5, Luka, Kyrie, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, so far, basically 120 offensive rating, 67th percentile in the NBA, meaning it's above average, like well above average for this team. And then 109 defensive rating, 58th percentile, which is just above average, which is all you need for this team if your offense is going to be that good. So it's a plus 11 net rating, 58th percentile, above average across the board, offense, defense, and net rating. And if they're going to be above average across the board, then this team's going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, I want to give Gafford some love here. I think Lively is better. I think Lively should start. I don't change anything on that. I've been very clear about that.
Different topic.
But I want to give Gafford a lot of love on this. Gafford gets traded here from Washington, the land of despair, and he finally gets to play with Luka and all this stuff, and has the best moments of his career in these playoffs. Kid makes that decision to bench your rookie, like good starting big, starts Gafford, and then have this, they have this incredible record to finish the season. He goes with Gafford again. And it's like you're going into your first like full season in Dallas. You just came off like a finals run with this team. You started and all this stuff, but you're not dumb. You know that at the same position, they just drafted this first round pick who's awesome.
And it's going to be more than you in the finals.
Yeah, and it's going to be a future, star in this league. And it's like he could have had kind of like a bad attitude about it, but the dude is like balling out right now. to start the season. I mean, he outplayed Rudy Gobert. You start looking at some of these numbers across the board as far as like the lineup combinations, him and Klay together plus 10 in 67 minutes. That's the best like duo plus minus in any of those duo combinations that's played above 60 minutes for Dallas this season so far. You look at the 3-man combos, it's the same there with Luka, Klay, and Gafford. That's a plus 10 in 67 minutes. Like, it's just by far, when you look at some of these best lineup combinations, when Gafford's on the floor, their plus minus is really good. And he's doing this without getting lobs.
Yeah.
And this is his thing, right? Like, you bring Daniel Gafford in or a Dereck Lively in. It's like, dude, you run pick and roll, run to the rim and catch lobs from Luka. He's not catching lobs from Luka. I wanted to look this up because Jason Kidd talked about the other night post game of saying the league is taking away the lobs from us. So I started looking up some of these alley-oop numbers. I'm like, all right, where are we at? So I looked at, they've had five alley-oop attempts.
One was PJ, the open.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to dissect them here. They've had 5 alley-oop attempts, all right? They've made 4 of them. So out of the 4 makes, one of them was that PJ one that was out of a design like set play and all this stuff. Another one was a fast break in which I think Naji was coming down and it was like the defenders came up and he just like tossed up the Lively. That's a second one there. Okay.
Was one of them the Luka to Kyrie in that fast break? You remember when he tried to throw that ball?
No, they didn't count that.
That was like 2 games ago.
Yeah.
They should have. He tried to throw it and I was like, what are you doing?
No. Luka had flashbacks of that highlight. He's like, dude, I want to do it again.
There's a defender between them that time.
The only one out of those four so far to start the season, they've only had 4 alley-oop done. The only one that could be considered an alley-oop coming out of a pick and roll was this one play with Gafford in which he does like a slip screen, doesn't even set the screen, and Luka kind of dribbles around another guy, and then goes in the paint and throws it up to him. So I guess you could call that an alley-oop coming out of a pick and roll. But if you don't, let's just call it is. They've had 1 pick and roll lob this season.
Attempt.
No, make. Like, they've only had 5 lob attempts all season so far in the first 4 games, just 5. So coming out of a pick and roll though, they've had 1 lob that is connected, and it shows you what Jason Gill was saying of like, hey, the league's taking away this, they're packing the paint and all this stuff. And for Daniel Gafford to be excelling and playing really good basketball and his plus minus being good and his effort and all the stuff, and he's not getting the thing that he's the best at and that they brought him in to do on the offensive side of the ball, I think speaks dividends to him, the coaching staff, but especially him and just where he's at mentally and how he's playing. Like, I think he deserves a lot of credit right now.
Absolutely. He's shooting 16 of 27 from the field. That's 59%, which would be good, but not for him. Right? Like, like teams have made him try and do stuff on offense that's not what he normally wants to do. But he's made the best of it, and he hit that hook shot over Rudy Gobert to start the game the other day. He's running the floor and beating Gobert down the floor in transition. I think that has helped too. We talked all summer who's going to replace Derrick Jones Jr. and Josh Green streaking out on when they in transition. Maybe it's the center, Daniel Gafford, to get out and get those passes. That's really been awesome for him. And then Bobby Karalla, your actual best friend, posted.
I love Bobby.
Posted this clip of Gafford from the first quarter where he's defending and he runs and switches out to Anthony Edwards and stays with him, and then he recovers back to Rudy Gobert in time, and then he jumps to try and contest another shot, and then he turns around and Gobert tries to dunk on him and he blocks that.
Yeah,
and just
nasty.
Seeing him rotate in that is just it looked so much better than it did in the playoffs last year. He kind of was like, all right, I've accepted what this defense is.
That's how he got played off the floor.
So. I've accepted what this defense is, and I know how to fit in it, and he's got to be able to stick with some of those guys and make those rotations, and he did in that play. Excellent play from him. And so to see growth from him, to see that is one of the reasons why this starting lineup has worked, and one of the reasons why I still want Lively to start in that group, but it's working so far, and I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're winning games, that's the thing that matters.
Who am I to complain about it?
I know that's what matters the most. So I will say they moved on from Grant Williams as Batman pretty early.
No, the JaVale one, 8 games.
They've replaced the new Batman in the videos in the AAC now is Daniel Gafford. I'm like,
oh, you were talking about the actual video. I thought
no.
I thought you were talking about the lineup still.
No. So pretty tall Batman, right? Like, it's not feasible.
I know, but if you want somebody that's intimidating in a dark corner, like,
he's not fitting in the Batmobile. What are we doing?
Alfred made that for him. You don't think that he can custom make the Batmobile to fit Daniel Gafford?
I don't know. I mean, we're talking a 7-foot Batman.
We're talking.
Bane's like, crap, I'm looking at you in your eyeballs.
I got one more.
All right. Oh, yeah, cool.
Can I say the thing?
You got one more thing?
One more thing. The Mavs free throw differential right now is terrible. Mavs are taking 19 free throws a game. That's 29th in the NBA. There's only
I was going to say, I wrote down this number of like where they're at right now with free throws.
One team worse than them as far as free throws per game. Their opponents are shooting 29. So that's 24th, which is bad. That's like bottom 6, bottom 7. And so opponents are taking 10 more free throw attempts per game than the Mavericks right now. That's a bad sign, and yet they're 3-1.
If those refs would give Luka a foul call.
You think if he asked for it nicely, or if he went to them and like, what if he talked and had a conversation with them, possibly during a play? Would that help?
I'm just waiting for the first Tony Brothers game.
Oh my gosh.
I'm ready for this moment.
Already got one tech. That's stupid. Did that get rescinded today? I don't think it did.
We mentioned we didn't mention on yesterday's podcast how they forced 20 turnovers too, as far as the defense. Thought that was a huge mark for them against
Very
Minnesota.
Huge. There was so much to talk about from that game. It was such a good win against Minnesota. Oh my gosh. Like, you take that every single time.
Huge win. And then we have Houston coming up on tonight in Dallas. And it's like, they're so frisky. They have such a fun roster. And can we like go ahead and predict it now? The equation of Luka is frustrated at the world right now with his play and gotten 2 straight techs. Like that plus Dylan Brooks equals another tech, possibly an ejection
or a 50-point game. It's either one.
I'm kind of scared if I'm like, please come out and hit like your first like 3 shots, because if it's another frustrating game, Luka might just like rip his jersey in half again and just fight Dylan Brooks. And it's like, I'm done.
I think he'll be all right. So we'll cover that game. Slightly and I will have the post game on that for this show. So come back and stick with us. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. Go and check out the QR code for more ways to follow the newsletter. We want to keep building our lead on Locked On Kings. We've got to beat them in newsletter subscribers.
Create emails and then just
just make these
AOL
fraud, guys.
Hotmail.
Fraud.
I think all these things are still going. So multiple Gmail accounts.
There you go. Like I said, we'll be back on the post game tonight for Locked On or for Mavs versus Rockets. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
To be so.
Boom.